This is a Muscle Cat Media production.
Back on the Expats for part 2 of Spoon's Future Plays. If you weren't with us earlier in the week, you should have been, because you would have heard names like Brandon Woodruff and Shane McClanahan, and really that's the reason why you tune into the Baseball Expats. Today we're going to look at some more of Spoon's future plays, but from the offensive guys, so things like stolen bases, RBIs, home runs, and as promised, we're going to tell you what's happening with Destiny Draft heading into the 2026 season. But first, I must say hello to the man himself. Spoon, good day, my friend.
Hello, mate. How's it going?
Very good. I must say that I enjoyed clipping up that reel of Shane McClanahan earlier in the week. That's not something that I expected that I would be doing when I woke up.
It's cool that they had
Thanks for that.
footage of him pitching in color. I thought you'd have to go back to black and white the last time he was active in the league. But yeah, he's up and about. I'm quietly excited to watch some Tampa Bay Rays baseball, which I think is a brand new sentence.
Well, I did have to use spring training footage for the majority of what was there, because it was obviously the most recent stuff that we had. I didn't realize that he had actually pitched in spring training last year and then hurt himself again.
Yeah. I think he had some weird nerve-related stuff, and they just kind of shut him down for the season because I don't think it was meant to be the season originally, but they realized he was kind of going to be wasted on a non-competitive year, and they've just taken an abundance of caution so that this year he can strike out 200 guys and get us all paid.
Right. It was the long play so that the futures play here on Baseball Expats could get up in 2026. Well, just like we did earlier in the week, I'll let you take it away. I believe we're going to start with some guys who you like to swipe a few bags this season.
Yeah, I thought this one was really interesting when I looked at it. I wasn't expecting to find much I liked in this market, and I didn't. But this guy jumped out to me as, I think, a clear overreaction. I want to talk about Ronald Acuna Jr. very quickly, a guy who this time last year, I think you picked for MVP and I picked to be traded to the Guardians, and we were both.
Well, hang on a second. Like, let's not. I mean, somebody might be listening to this show for the first time, and if I had just blindly selected Ronald Acuna to be the MVP of the National League last year, with no context, they'd go, "These guys don't know what they're talking about." It was a good long shot. I didn't think he was going to win it. I said you could have done worse than the 40s or whatever he was to begin the season, and then you said that he'd probably be better odds to win the American League MVP because you thought he was going to get traded.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of taking you down with me there. I was going to say we were both equally far off, but he did finish the season in Atlanta, so I probably come second on that prediction front. I thought these prices were crazy for a guy who, in his MVP season just 3 years ago, swiped 73 bases. Like, there's always injury risk with Acuna. He played 49 games in 2024 and then 95 last year as he kind of came back into the season at the midway point. But there's also so much upside. I think this market seems to be really pricing in a hesitancy to run from Acuna last year because he only attempted 10 swipes in 95 games. But to me, this was a sign of a Braves team who they were out of any contention really by the time Acuna came back. That their entire rotation was on the IL. And he'd also blown out both knees in the last 2 years. So I think he was only swiping in the most clearly obvious situations, and he still swiped 9 of those 10 attempts. He's now another year removed from that injury, so I'm kind of betting on him to be returning as a key base stealing threat. So I'm going to take him on trust. He is $1.90 for just 30 stolen bases and $4.50 for 40, which, given the context of that 73 swipe season, just seems like a price I have to take.
Sorry, internet just shouted, so I just switched over to the phone. I heard you say price I had to take, though, so
Okay,
we can
cool.
pick it up from there. What was the
Yep.
What was the play again? What
30 at 190 and 40 at 450.
Ooh. Yeah, look, I like this. We will have to say that with a bit of a caveat. Everything comes with an asterisk on this show when we're talking odds. I mean, you did pick Corbin Carroll to steal, I think, 50 bases last year in the preseason version of the Baseball Expats. But I think that was a little bit more hard overhead, whereas this feels like, and I mean, you did this a little bit earlier in the week when we were talking with pitchers, is just trying to find those markets for guys that might be undervalued just because it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind. And maybe it does feel like the masses maybe think that Ronnie is turning into a different type of a player solely because he hasn't had the stolen base numbers that he's had previously, but I think it would be unfair to think that. I mean, 50 games in 2024, 95 last year, and there was really no reason to risk it with him. Coming off of a 73 steal season like you talked about in 2023, you would feel like he's probably going to be back to half as good at that if he plays an entire season. I mean, he did play 159 games that year, which is absurd. I don't know that he'll play 159 games this year. But if the Braves are good, he's going to play 140 times. And you would expect that he's going to get a steal. I mean, what is that? In one of every 4 games that he plays? So if he's healthy, the Braves are playing good baseball, and they're happy to continue to send him. I don't see how he doesn't hit that number, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's pricing in both the overall injury risk on him not playing a full season, but also what we saw from him when he did return last year. But I think that context is really important around they were out of contention by the time he came back. There was no reason for him to run at all. And he still swiped 9 bags when he was probably told not to run whatsoever. So what's he going to do this year with an orange light instead of a red light? I think I'm keen to find out. And just quickly defending my honor, because I feel the need to do that all the time. Corbin still swiped 32 bags last year, and he led the league. He led all of majors in triples with 17, which was part of the problem. If all of those triples were singles and he got 2 more swipes, would have hit that 50 mark. Just.
So he was, quick maths, 64% of the way to the total that you needed him to get, and you're considering that a pass mark.
Yeah, and he missed 19 games, so he would have obviously picked up a stolen base per game in those 19. He missed all the good ones.
This is why, look, I'm all for you back and Spoon, folks. If you want to go in with him, and I like this one because Ronnie's fun to watch. And if you have any, like, if you don't need an excuse to watch Ronnie 7 days a week, but if you do need one, this is a great excuse to have because I do think he will steal some bags this year. But these things just come with caveats because sometimes Spoon misses by as much as he did with Corbin last year, and A, makes a lot of excuses, and B, tells you how it was a pass mark, even though the guy clearly had a D in that category.
Yeah, it's probably a really great time for a reminder that all of my D-backs plays do come with a bit of a disclaimer, because the other guy I want to talk about for stolen bases this year is Geraldo Perdomo. This looks like a nice one and done price for me. He swiped 27 bags last year and he played just 1 game shy of a full season. There were some key depth trades made by the D-backs this offseason with guys like Jake McCarthy and Blaze Alexander being traded away. Lourdes Gurriel is going to be out for about half of the season so far. I think Perdomo's role looks to increase as far as how much the offense leans on him. Make no mistake, this guy led the NL in WAR last year with 7 on the way to a 4th place MVP finish. I think he's the most underrated player in baseball. That's more WAR than Ohtani had as a hitter, by the way. The bookies seem to be suggesting maybe last year was a career ceiling year by not sort of respecting his numbers so much. But at the same time, he's only turning 26 heading into this year. So I kind of see nothing but upside for him. So I'm just going to take a one and done of 30 stolen bases at $3.75, which is just a 10% increase on last year.
Yeah, I suppose the games played risk is where you're at there. Like, I mean, he only missed 1 game last year. Will he play that much in 2026? You would think so. I mean, there's no reason to suggest that he wouldn't. If he was needed 161 times for the 2025 version of the D-backs, he's likely needed 160 times for the 2026 version. But when you see a guy who, hey, did miss the number last year by 21 stolen bases a year ago, and he played 161 games, I guess that would be my only hesitancy. But you're right. I mean, the guy's only getting better. He's probably not even in the prime of his career yet. And with a 7 WAR last year, I mean, potentially that he won't have the same issue that you would have with a guy like Corbin Carroll, just simply because he doesn't possess the same amount of power. I mean, he has sneaky power for a guy that's his size, and maybe that ticks up a little bit this year. And the more power that's there, I guess the less chances there are for stolen bases. But I think the value that you're getting for 30 when he was nearly there last year, and if you just assume, like you said, that 10% uptick, and I mean, he was also caught 6 times as well. So as long as his success percentage goes up, I mean, he ran quick math, again, you're forcing me to do this a lot. He ran 33 times and was caught 6 of those times. So it's not as though he couldn't have gotten to that number last year. It was just the caught stealing. So, if the attempts go up by 4 or 5 and his success rate improves a little bit, that's all you would need to be able to hit that mark.
Yeah, and I think given the state of Arizona pitching this year, but also every year, they're in a lot of these high-scoring, close games where situationally you're actually looking for a guy to get into scoring position. He's also very, very good at drawing walks, extending out ABs and getting on, and then sort of moving into that position or scoring position by stealing. So yeah, it's different to the Acuna play in that, the Acuna play, we're really looking at what his floor is. Here, I'm kind of projecting a bit more of a ceiling. He's got to break a career mark. That's why it's not a ladder play or anything like that. But I think as a one and done at 375, it's not a bad way to kind of round out a market that I didn't see a lot in that I liked.
Well, these are two fun guys too, right? I mean, you like I said, you don't need a reason to follow Geraldo Perdomo and Ronnie Acuna Jr. because they're just such fun guys. I mean, they're must-see television if you're watching the D-back play, if you're watching Atlanta play. So I think it is kind of a fun way to play these two guys throughout the season, just to have a little bit of interest in tuning in to watch them night in and night out.
Yeah, exactly. And look, this is probably the perfect segue into guys now, a couple of guys I want to talk about there, because I actually thought the Perdomo RBIs market was just clearly priced wrong, to be honest. I've just made the case why I think he's going to back up his 2025 campaign and repeat success in some areas and potentially exceed it in others. He knocked in 100 RBIs last year, which comfortably led all D-back teammates. The closest guy, to be fair, was Gino Suarez with 87, who got traded at the All-Star break, so was probably not going to lead that stat if he stayed on the team. But we're getting plus pricing about 70 stolen bases. So 70 stolen bases, 70 RBIs is $2.40, 80 is $3.50, and 90 is $5.50. Getting plus pricing on a guy to get 70% of last year's total in an offense that I think will be just as competitive, thanks to Corbin and Cattell, looks like maybe the best value of any play that I'll pick today. I'm comfortable taking that top up all the way to 90 at $5.50 because I think they've just priced these wrong. I can't have him at 70 RBIs at $2.40 off the back of a 100 RBI season.
Why is that, do you think? Because that surprises me as well that number is so low coming off the back of a 100 RBI season.
Baseball ref projections for him are at 72. I think they're just expecting that last year was a fluke, and I've kind of talked about why I think that's not the case. But I mean, he was a silver slugger at shortstop last year. This is not a guy who just had a good couple of weeks. He was very consistent all season. And I think I had a look before actually at his splits, and he was just kind of doing it every single month of the year. Let me bring up the by month stats. Yeah, he had 24 RBIs in April and March, 17 in May, 17 in June, 17 in July, 12 in August, and 13 in September. Like, this wasn't a good month. This was a really good, consistent year. 70 RBIs at $2.40 is something I'm going to be having a bit of a go at.
Does his spot on the lineup change? Like, I'm just trying to work out why this number would be so low, because it seems like coming off of a year like that, yeah, it's a breakout year, and you would expect maybe a little bit of regression. But like I said, he's trending toward the prime of his career. I mean, as he gets to 27, 28, 29 years of age, that's where you would expect those best years of his career to come from. So it is really strange that number has been so low. And look, sometimes you can find value like this. I mean, it looks like a majority of the year last year, I mean, he hit first, second, third, seventh out of the layouts in the order.
Yeah.
And the majority of those were in the leadoff spot, but he hit all over the orders. So he's kind of proven that he can do it everywhere because his numbers in every spot on the lineup were decent. I mean, even when he hit ninth, I mean, they were better than what his numbers were when he hit leadoff. So it just seems strange that would, I mean, I guess the numbers for a leadoff guy like him, not talking about a leadoff guy like Kyle Schwarber, because they are obviously very different players. But a leadoff guy like him, I guess maybe the argument is if he is probably going to hit in that spot more often, maybe those RBI chances are less. Because when he was leading off last year, I mean, what did he hit in the leadoff spot? He hit 323 in the leadoff spot last year, but only 26 of his RBIs came while hitting in the leadoff spot. So I suppose maybe pricing in there a little bit is considering, will he be the everyday leadoff hitter for the Diamondbacks, because last year only 26% of his RBIs came from that spot. So maybe that's where that's priced in a little bit. Again, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of why that number is 30% lower than what I thought it would be.
I think as well, yeah, to your point on that batting leadoff, the D-backs lineup on paper heading into the season is not as tall as it was. Like last year, even if he was batting 9 or batting leadoff, our 6, 7, 8 guys at times could be like a Josh Naylor, a Lourdes Gurriel. You had Gino hitting cleanup. Those guys aren't there now. We're going to have to see what like Nolan Arenado can do as far as getting into scoring position from the 7 or 8 spot in the batting lineup. So I think there's probably going to be less opportunity. But at the same time, this is a D-backs offense that has still managed to consistently be top 5 in runs scored for many years now. And heading into every season, it's kind of like, oh, I'm not sure they've got the firepower, and they do continuously seem to have the firepower. There's some guys that I think are going to look to take a step forward this year, like a Jordan Lawler who's going to be batting in that sort of 7-8 mark. He's a consistent speed threat too. So if you've got Jordan Lawler reaching, which would require hitting the baseball, to be fair, but if you've got Jordan Lawler reaching base, you could have him in scoring position pretty quickly. And this is a team that's been built around speed for a long time. So look, I don't say with any confidence he's going to repeat at 100, but you're giving me 550 about 90 and 240 about 70. I think it's probably the best value of anything I'll talk about today, like I said.
Yeah, looking at me like we talked about on Monday, that's punting, right? You're going searching for value, and that's a guy that's proven he can already do it. You're not asking a guy to go out and do something he hasn't already done. In fact, I mean, you're saying that you can regress by 30% and still hit the mark. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, well, speaking of asking someone to do something they haven't done, I'm about to ask for that. And similar, I guess, to the setup of the stolen base play, where Acuna was the floor play, and then, in RBIs, Perdomo was our floor play. This guy here is definitely a ceiling play. Jackson Holiday for 70 RBIs is $2.70, 80 is $3.30, and 90 is $6. Firstly, I'll say yes. I did catch the weird wrinkle in pricing that Holiday is shorter than Perdomo for 80, but longer at 70 and 90, and that just makes zero sense and does lead me to believe that they've got these markets priced a little bit wrong. I think a lot's been said about these young O's already. A lot of people have kind of written them off. They had a very disappointing year last year, but for reasons I've mentioned in the last couple of episodes, I'm buying some Baltimore stock in 2026. Holiday knocked in 55 RBIs in 149 games last year, and what was a pretty average season. He hit below league average in OPS plus. He managed just a 1.0 WAR. This kid was a top prospect for a long time for a reason, and he only turned 22 a couple of months ago. There's plenty of signs for me that this is a guy who's about to take his game to the next level on a team that I think is going to be so much more complete and competitive this year, with the ads of guys like Pete Alonso, with Tyler O'Neill playing more of the season than he did last year. I think a deep lineup, much to the point we made before about the D-bags, if you've got 1 to 7, 1 to 8 guys that are consistently getting on base, that opens up again for a leadoff hitter to really be able to pounce on some of these RBI opportunities. Word of warning though on this one, I do want to see the return timeline on his hey mate injury before locking this in, because he was one of those aforementioned hand bone removal operators, and I think he's going to miss spring training. I'm not sure if he's going to be right for opening day, and if that's the case, there's no way I'd be taking any of this. So this one's a bit of a watch and see, and timeline will be dependent on locking it in.
Give us a number on that again. It was 70 RBIs for what price?
270, 80 at 330, and then 90 at $6.
Well, I mean, for him, his big issue last year was just he would go an entire month doing basically nothing. But I mean, the Orioles, by and large, had a tendency of doing that a little bit last year. I mean, you look at like him in the month of May, he drove in 16 and hit 287. I mean, he showed us a glimpse of what he could do pretty early in the season last year. The problem is he really didn't replicate that for the rest of the year. He got off to a slow start, just as all of Baltimore did. He hit 226 in the month of April and only drove in 7. So, look, I mean, the fact that he got to that number of 55 last year and had a slow start to the season, I mean, 7 RBIs in 21 games in April, and he still only ended up 15 short of where you want him to be. Look, I even think if he misses the start of the season, it's still not a horrible bet. You probably want some guarantees that if he's coming back after injury, that it would want to be, sort of mid to late April. I wouldn't think you'd want him starting the season in May. But I mean, even based on what he did last year, because he's proven that he can have 16, 18, 20 RBIs in a month. And if he puts 2 or 3 of those together, you're laughing. So I definitely think 70 is achievable. He just can't have the gulfs in months that he had last year, because there were times when he was explosive and there were times when you just didn't hear about him for 2 years.
Yeah, I think as well, it's worth highlighting that his 55 RBIs, which seems like a pretty modest total, was still second on the team behind Gunnar Henderson's 68. So I think a big part of it is a symptom of a bigger problem, which was the Orioles were terrible and not scoring many runs. And, in line with a lot of what I've spoken about the last couple of weeks, I'm expecting that to change in a big way. And to be fair, their win total set at 84 or whatever. So I think there's clear expectation that this is going to be a bit more of an offensive juggernaut this year, and there'll be more RBIs for everyone to go around. Because that's a good Cedric Mullins with 49.
I was just going to say it's a good point, because I mean, you got to have guys on base to be able to drive them in, right? I mean, you would expect maybe that those home run numbers tick up a little bit, which is obviously going to help the RBI numbers as well. But to that point, in the month that we just spoke about, month of May last year, he had 16 RBIs, 31 hits. A month later, he had 3 fewer hits with 28, but drove in half the amount of runs. So he drove in 8 as opposed to 16 and only had 3 fewer hits, to your point, largely because, in all likelihood, there weren't a lot of guys on base from the drive in.
Yeah, and I think that lineup thinned out really quickly when you had, look at games played last year from some of these top guys. Ryan O'Hearn played 94 games. Justin Westberg played 85 games. Ryan Mountcastle played 89. Adley played 90. Tyler O'Neill played 54 games. They had 2 players play 100 games last year, Gunnar Henderson and Jackson Holiday. Yes, they were bad, but they were also really banged up. Now they're kind of healthy and they've added some of the players that they've added. I just think it's got all the makings of, a don't rule us out just yet kind of season for both the O's and Jackson Holiday.
No, this is good. I like this. You're giving us a lot of fun guys to follow. There's no Eric-esque Kansas City, Minnesota under 6.5s that I'm sensing here in the future so far. So I like the guys that you've given us to this point.
All right. Are we ready to move on to home runs?
Let's do it.
All right. So my Washington Nationals, James Wood. I think, a good opportunity here. I just want to quickly touch back on a point I've made a couple of times the last week about the importance of price shopping. Since I went and wrote these down on Bet365, Sportsbet have now released their player prop prices just for home runs, and there's a notch higher for every single player. So I am, just reinforcing, if you like a play, wait, because in the next week or two, Sportsbet will have all of theirs out, including strikeouts, and a few of the other corporate bookmakers will as well, and you'll be able to price hunt. And, these little 20, 30 cent differences do make a really big impact over the longer term. James Wood had a really good season last year. He played on a terrible Nationals team, which paused well with the terrible tipster who said they were going to win 72 games. You're looking at him. He hit 31 home runs in 157 games. He was an all-star, and now he enters his 2026 season age just 23. It was just his first full year in the majors last year, playing just a half season the year before, and I see nothing but upside for this guy this year. The really interesting part of the 2025 season for me were his splits in the first and second half. He hit 24 home runs in the first half of the year on the way to 155 OPS plus, and then he hit just 7 home runs after the break with an OPS plus that was below league average. You might say this was the home run derby breaking his swing, as a lot of guys like to say. For me, this was just a young player running out of steam, playing a long, grueling 162 game season in the majors and not able to put it together with the same consistency. I now see a guy who's ready to have his second full season and be able to match that back half up a lot more with the first half. So you're getting 30 home runs at $2.40 and then 35 home runs at $3.50. I'm kind of on the fence about whether I would take both of those or I'm just going to take the 35, $3.50 as a one and done. Because there's not really a lot of variance between 30 and 35, and the pricing kind of reflects that. So I just thought I'd flag both of those as talking points, and we can kind of pick our way through them. But the Sportsbet one for that was a little bit better on, he was $2.50 for 30 instead of $2.40. So at that point, and then I have 35, theirs go up in 10 increments. I'm somewhere in between 30 at 250 or 35 at 350.
When Christina Carl coined the term 3 true outcomes in baseball, she was sort of talking about a guy like Woods, don't you think?
Yeah. Or Gary Sanchez.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that we could go back in time and imagine. I mean, 221 strikeouts to 85 walks last year to go along with those 31 home runs and the 153 hits that he has. I mean, for mine, if you're going to play a guy at plus money for 30 home runs, it's this type of guy that you do that, because you're largely not going to get an everyday player who's established that's a 3 true outcomes type of a guy at that price. So you're banking on, look, age 23 year, all he's got to do is repeat that he did last year. And he's not really a gap-to-gap type of a guy. He's a strikeout home run power threat. And I mean, even when he was coming up, I mean, we talked about him a lot last year. And look, he wasn't in the system for all that long, because like we said, I mean, he made his major league debut at age 21, but we talked about him last year. I mean, this is a guy that clearly projects as a 40 home run player at some point in his career with the Nationals. And obviously, once he gets to that point and he's regularly hitting that amount of home runs, you're not even going to get 30 as an option in this market. You may not get it again in 2027. So for mine, it does seem like a pretty good play when you're asking a guy just to do what he did last year, again, on a team that wasn't great and maybe won't be great again this year. But that doesn't matter as much. Like when we talked about home runs for Jackson Holiday, it doesn't necessarily matter as much because in this instance, James Wood controls his own destiny. You know what I mean? In terms of hitting home runs, you are in control of whether or not you hit that number. And, sometimes guys are their biggest opponents, and he hit 31 last year in his sophomore campaign. I would imagine that he wants to try and better that number in 2027. You're getting plus money to find out.
Yeah, and I think, to your point about the team not being good, that's never stopped guys just jacking home runs and, inflating numbers late in the season. I just think his body struggled to keep up with it because like his OPS plus by month, April 153, May 180, June 149, July 57, August 99, September 118. He just really never came back right after the All-Star break, even though he played almost every game. And his home run numbers reflected that. He went 976, 225 by month. All he needs to do is be a little bit more consistent. And I think, 30 is well and truly on the cards. And it did just clock that Sportsbet have 40 up at $7.50, which probably makes a bit more sense actually as a ladder play, as a small value top up, rather than doing the increments of 5. Take him 250 for 30 and then, half a unit on the 750 for 40, because I don't think anyone would be surprised at all if James Wood hit 40 home runs this year.
Was he was in the home run derby last year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It's funny how you see these young guys, man, when they compete
He has
the
great
derby and
wins.
as in they come
Photo
back after
gambling.
the All-Star break, it's for whatever reason, I mean, you even said it there, September, the OPS plus was back above 100. So
Yeah.
it's almost like, I mean, guys say it all the time. It's not a thing that just us pundits make up. They say sometimes 6 to 8 weeks after you compete in that derby, your swing just isn't right because you're trying to hit 400 bombs for people to catch at the home run derby. And I think he hit like 14 or 16 home runs or something in the first round and didn't make it past the first round, which is how absurd the home run derby was last year. But and that clearly goes into it. If he doesn't compete in that home run derby, maybe he hits 35, 36, and that number to hit 30 this year is, paying $1.85 instead of plus money.
Yeah, and Soto has spoken about it before and said that it definitely made an impact for him, and he's probably the best pure hitter of our generation of baseball, so he might know a little bit more than I do about hitting. It wouldn't be a massive gulf in knowledge, but it would be, it'd be notable. The second guy I want to talk about is pretty similar, actually, to the story of James Wood, and this is the guy you saw a bit of last year, and I think he actually hit a grand slam for you in Destiny Draft 1 week. I want to talk about Pete Crow Armstrong. He also hit 31 home runs in his first full year in the league, like James Wood. He's a year older than James Wood, but he's entering this year as a 24-year-old, and he's looking to build on a really impressive 6-WAR campaign for the Cubs last year. Now, like Wood, the split story is almost identical. He hit 25 home runs before the All-Star break with 132 OPS plus. Then he hit just 6 home runs after the All-Star break with an OPS plus of just 74. For all the same reasons as James Wood, this looks like a guy to me that just could not maintain that level of consistency in his first 162-game season. And now his body's going to be better prepared for it. And I think he's going to have a much more consistent season as a result. So you can get him for 30 at $3.20. Bet365 had 35 at $4.50. And Sportsbet have 40 at $9.50, which might be a little bit of a reach given he probably has a bit less like raw pop than a James Wood. But I think 30 at $3.20 for a guy who just hit 31 last year and had 25 before the All-Star break? That's just crazy for me.
Yeah, his pre and post numbers are dramatic. I mean, he was even a 265 hitter before the All-Star break. And I mean, that dropped dramatically. I mean, he barely hit above 200 after the All-Star game. So
Probably could have won the MVP. Like he had a 6-WAR season with that second half.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Without the dip in the second half, I mean, we just talked about Geraldo Perdomo leading the National League in WAR last year. A PCA, he doesn't even have to equal what he did pre-All-Star break. If he just has a slight fall after the All-Star break, he's probably to use the term, if he is a replacement player, because he was probably well below replacement in all actuality in those 65 games after the All-Star break. So that number seems quite high as well for 30. I mean, I get it that they're probably pricing in a little bit of power upside for Wood, whereas with PCA, is 31 his ceiling? I mean, they're obviously very different type of players, but is 30 home runs kind of the ceiling for PCA? Do they see him as being that, that guy that kind of lives between 28 and 33 for his entire career? Whereas like we talked about with Wood, he obviously projects as being a 40 home run guy. So maybe that's where that pricing has been has been thought about a little bit to where that obviously he's plus money. I mean, you're getting better than $3 to find out for PCA. But yeah, I mean, as long as he doesn't sort of start the season off where he picked or where he ended last year, and you feel like he has a hot start. I mean, he had a hot start last year. We were talking about him in that Tokyo series. I think some of the early plays was I think I had him to hit exactly a double or something outrageous in the first series of the season, which obviously didn't happen, which is why I no longer get tips on this program. But I think as long as he starts the season in a similar fashion that he did last year, there's no reason why he can't hit that. And in some ways, I think that's more of a fun play than would because of the amount that you're getting to find out. And if you really want to take the punt on PCA that he can consistently be a 30 home run guy or better, that's pretty good value.
Yeah, I think compared to the Wood one where I really like, yeah, having a good go at the 30 at 250, but definitely a bit on the 40 as well at 750 because you kind of kick yourself if you let it go around without yours on. I do think with PCA, I'm much more keen just the 30 at 320 and maybe just a bonus bet or whatever on the 40 at 950 without actually expecting that to be within range. There's two types of 31 home run seasons last year when we're talking about these two guys, and I think Wood's clearly the guy with the upside.
Yeah, I would agree. Then look, I'd probably you're right. I maybe would spend somebody else's money, 40 home runs for PCA, or spend the bookies' money with a bonus bet. I don't think he's hitting 40, but you're right. I mean, if you are keen on him hitting 30 and you're getting better than $3 to find out, and you can have a tickle on that number that's a little bit higher. It's one of those where you'd probably like to see some value in what they would give you for 35 home runs. If they would give you something like $6 for 35 home runs.
365.
See that? Yeah, you're not getting enough to find out for.
Yeah, I'd rather just go harder at the 320. I think if you're
I agree.
staking to return. This is the next two guys we're talking about are quite different totals here. They're a fair bit higher. I want to talk about Jordan Alvarez. I do think he's a bit of value here. He's looking to put a frustrating season behind him from last year. He played just 48 games due to injury. You might think of this guy as an injury-prone guy, but all the injuries he's had have just been like these bizarre kind of freak incidents. He missed most of his games last year. He missed 100 games with a hand injury. And then within a week or so of coming back, he slipped on home plate as he scored in September and broke his ankle. Like this isn't like a typical injury prone, as sad as it is, we're talking today about Chris Bryant, who's just been like ruined with a chronic back injury. It doesn't look the same to me with Jordan. I see a guy who's been really unlucky with injuries to date, and by all reports is at 100% right now. I think it makes for a really interesting 2026 for Houston, but when he is on, I think he's the most terrifying hitter in baseball behind maybe Judge or Ohtani. Like if you've got bases loaded, this guy up in a playoff game. And I mean, he's done it before, right? He did it to Seattle 2 years ago when they brought Robbie Ray out of the bullpen for some reason, and he just quickly made them pay for that mistake. You're looking at 35 home runs at $2.60, and then 45 home runs was $8.50, or $4.20 for 40 now that the sports bet markets are out. He's hit the 35 mark in 2 of his last 3 full seasons. And I think he's clearly got the profile of a guy who can hit 40 or more, albeit he's yet to do that. His highest being 37 in 2022 when he was third in MVP. I'm asking for a little bit of, the unknown here and a little bit of upside on a guy who's now 7 years into the league, but he's still only entering his age 29 season. He's not exactly over the hump as far as, a power hitter. I think if you were to compare, like if you were to go look at a Kyle Schwarber, for example, it wouldn't surprise me at all if, his age 29 season his age 29 season, he hit 46 home runs. It's the most he's hit. And he's since hit 47, 38, and 56. If you're looking at a guy who might be a full-time DH or might play some token left field, I do see a world where Alvarez can actually start to hit levels he hasn't hit before. Because he's been in the league forever, I think you kind of can figure he's over the hump, over the hill, and all these injuries are kind of holding him back. I kind of see it the opposite. I think this is the chance for him to have that real impact season. He's got a career OPS plus of 163. Like that's just madness. So give me the 35 at 260 without a doubt, and then I'll figure out whether I'm kind of landing on that 40 or 45 from there.
I like Jordan at 35. I mean, when you look at his 162 game average across his 7 seasons in the bigs, his average would come out to 41 home runs if he played 162 games. Now, that's been the problem, as you've talked about, because he has been injured so much. I mean, only twice in his career has he played more than 140 games. So you're banking on him missing, 20, 25 games, which is why obviously I think that 40 number is probably a little bit high. Now, I mean, it's priced in basically because you're asking him to have a step up in a season after he was injured. But I think if he plays, I mean, even looking back to 2 years ago, he played nearly 150 games, 147 games that year, the most that he's played in his career, and that was his 35 home run season, one of the 2 that he had, but he showed that he could hit 37 in just 135 games 2 years prior to that. So, for those reasons, I think the 35 is a good play, and again, getting plus money there I think is great. I think you're probably paying a little bit because of the injury just to make sure that he does come back healthy and is still slapping the ball all around the yard. I think I'd wanna see him tickle 40 before I thought about it, and the fact that he hasn't done that since 2022 makes me kinda hesitant, and the fact that he's never really been one of these 155, 158, 160 game guys and sort of has proven consistently throughout his career that he's gonna miss 20, 25, 30 games a season. The 40 maybe seems a little bit too high for me, but I would definitely be keen on 35.
Yeah, there's one little piece to that I just wouldn't mind adding as well. He didn't get to play a single game last year in Sacramento, where we were really early on that. Like, remember we were seeing those 8.5 totals at the start, and we were like, "Hang on, this is a little league park. It feels like these games are kind of high scoring." By the end of the year, the totals in that park were kind of in line with Coors, where they were 10.5. And you look at a lot of what the A's guys have sort of put up last year, numbers wise, like a Nick Kurtz and that kind of thing. And the commentary is already, but he did it in a little league park, and a lot of pitchers don't want to pitch there, and they're complaining. Imagine what Yordan Alvarez can do with 8 or 9 games in that park. I think there's a genuine world where there's a bit of upside there, on top of what I think could be upside on a season wide level.
Yeah, I mean, so what they would play 6 games, is it, in Sacramento?
Do you play 13 or 17? I think it's
this
13 now.
this balanced schedule. 13 on the road, or is it 13 total
I
against
think it's 13
neutral teams?
total.
Right, so you would play 6 or 7 games in Sacramento, and you'd play 6 or 7 games in Houston against the A's, is that right?
That sounds right, yeah.
So, look, I mean, you wouldn't rule out the fact that he couldn't have a multi-home run game in Sacramento. I'd be interested to see when those games are. I think more toward the middle of summer is like when you'd want Jordan to be in Sacramento, and you want him to be there while he was hot. And I mean, again, these aren't things necessarily that you can scope what's going to happen in June, July when you put a futures bet on to begin the season. But that's a good point. It's one that I hadn't really considered because the difference between going there and not going there could legitimately be a 5 home run total at the end of the year.
Yeah, it looks like, so they play each other, I think it's 17 times now. So they've got, it looks like, so they head there for 3 games in June, and they've got them for another 3 games in August. Yeah, no, so it's 6. Yeah, okay, so it's 13. And then they've got 7 against them at home. So yeah,
They're playing them in the hot summer months. It's not like they're playing there the second week of the season in April. They're playing them in the hot summer months when the ball's probably going to fly out a little bit better. So that's a good point. I mean, it's one that you have to consider, right? It's the same reason why you maybe would pick somebody in the NL West or somebody in Colorado whose numbers are, well, I mean, those numbers are always so inflated, but maybe somebody in the NL West that's a sneaker because they're going to be able to play 6 games in Coors is a reason why you would do it. It still really feels like the market never really knows what to do with Sacramento. I mean, eventually they brought those over-unders up a little bit compared to what they were at the beginning of the season, but it still really feels like they never quite caught up and the market doesn't really know what to do with it. It's almost like they're throwing their hands up and saying, this isn't going to be a problem that we have to deal with forever. So we're just going to let it be.
As long as,
but I mean, it could legitimately be the difference in going to the Coliseum as opposed to going there for Jordan could legitimately be the difference in 3-5 home runs over the course of the season.
So all of a sudden we're talking about 35 and 37, maybe jumping to 40. So yeah, I think there's a bit to watch there. There's a lot of sort of ifs, buts, and maybes, but I think 35 at 260, you could take that with a bit of confidence. And yeah, to be honest, you are able to multi some of these as well, or all of them. Not that I'd suggest doing that, but I think if you were to take, James Wood 30 at 250, PCA 30 at 320 into Jordan 35 at 260, you're kind of getting like 25s 30, about 3 plays that we've kind of really supported at a base level without even worrying about the value top ups from there.
Now, just because we've talked about it, and I did this without notice to you earlier in the week, but you've passed with flying colors. Because we're talking about Sacramento, what do the odds look like for Nick Kurtz for the A's this year. I mean, hit 36 in his rookie season last year. I mean, was the rookie of the year, silver slugger. I mean, he was nearly top 10 in MVP voting. Is he the guy that's basically the opposite? Because we've talked about all these guys that have hit these numbers, 637, and you're getting plus money for 35. But I would imagine a guy like that who hit what, 28 last year? What did he hit last year? Oh, he hit 36 last year. So I would imagine the market would probably price him at even money for 40, for instance.
Very well done. He's $2.10 for 40, which I just cannot take.
Yeah, but that's exactly what we've just been talking about, right? Is that's Simon Barger kind of not knowing what to do with that ballpark and just kind of guessing.
Yeah, I mean, 40 for a guy like that at $2.10 compared to Pete Crow Armstrong 320 about 30 is just not a chance. I think these futures players have so many of these markets are unders that you really have to kind of go through the weeds and pluck out the ones that are value, and that's why even with the stolen bases and the RBIs, there were two guys I liked in the whole 100 players that they gave me for this reason, because anyone who's a semi-big name who's been on Sports Center once is probably just way under the odds of where they should be. Like you couldn't get me. Like Nick Kurtz, $2.10 for 40 is the same price as Juan Soto.
Again, that's the ballpark being priced in. Can you take the under on that?
Sports,
or is it just strictly a will he hit mark? I mean, the under, if it's $2.10 for
it'd be about 37.5. I'm checking if it's on 365 because there were a couple of guys I'm probably going to bet unders that I won't even sort of deep dive on today. But there was one, Kyle Tucker, 27.5. I looked at, I was like, I'm taking the under on that for sure. He's never done it, and now he's a Dodger, so I'm going to hate watch him.
Well, that's it. You're just going to death ride whoever you can on the Dodgers.
No, this is not financial advice. This is just me being me. There was home run milestones, and there was player regular season home runs. That was the one that had the over unders in it. I don't know if Kurtz was listed though. They got a lot of guys here. Kurtz there. Yeah, he is. Yeah, it's under 37.5 at $1.95.
I mean, maybe at that number, you start to become a little bit hesitant. I think there's just something about 40. There's something about that number of hitting 40 home runs that seems, I mean, really only the elite home run hitter types do it. Very rarely do you see a guy accidentally hit 40 home runs. You can see a guy accidentally get to 30 every now and again. I mean, maybe PCA accidentally got to 30, right? We'll find out, and we're getting a good price to find out. But guys don't really accidentally get to 40, it doesn't seem like. And for me, it feels like there's a little bit of maybe, whereas we talked about last year with Sacramento, the market didn't really know what to do with it. That kind of feels a little bit like an overreaction to me, that they're just all of a sudden going to say that a guy like that at 23 years of age in 2026 is going to hit 40 home runs. So I'm happy to leave that.
Yeah. And I think even just on a, eye test trajectory as well, I would so much rather buy on a guy like Jackson Holiday, who was a top prospect for so long, and he's coming into his age 22 season where he hasn't done it, than put money on a guy like Nick Kurtz backing up last year what he already did in what was an unbelievable year, and he's been signed to a pretty nice extension since then as well. Like, who's got more to prove and who's got more upside? I think they're completely different kind of situations.
Well, and I guess the one thing probably with Kurtz, I mean, he only played 117 games last year and hit 36 home runs. So when you project that out to a full season, it projects to probably close to somewhere to 50 home runs if he plays 162 games. So if he can stay healthy, maybe it justifies that price a little bit. But even then, like I said, a price that's less than even money for a guy like that to hit 40 home runs it's not for me. It's for the thrill seekers, and I am not one of those.
Yeah. One guy left to go. Eric's going to be so flat he wasn't on this, because I think he'd just be like waving a Blue Jays flag the whole time or biting his tongue not to interrupt. But I really like Vladdy, the way he's priced for 2026. I think 2025 was a really weird year for Vladdy in the sense that he was brilliant with the bat. He hit a smidge under 300. He hit over 300 the year before. He had a 133 OPS plus, but the power numbers were just lacking. He hit 23 home runs, which was his lowest since playing in his first full season. I think the power is going to return for Vladdy. He looks jacked, which is the technical term, in a lot of the stuff I've seen coming from the Blue Jays in the off season. And I think as well, what's important to mention is he hit 8 home runs in 18 games in the postseason last year. And that kind of felt like something had clicked from a power threat, because all year you'd be watching the Blue Jays and like Vladdy would be up with guys on. It didn't feel like he was going to do something. And then in all those playoff games, it was like, oh my God, Vladdy's up with guys on. He's hit home run for the last 4 days. If that's what I think it is, it could be the writing on the wall for a big season this year in that sense. His 2021 campaign, where he finished second in MVP voting behind a then Angels Shohei Ohtani, saw 48 home runs in 161 games. And that 161 games thing's important because durability has been a key part of his career. He's missed no more than 6 games in a season since breaking into the league. So it's a bit different to, some of the guys we were talking about before, like an Acuna or something like that. So for 35 home runs, you're looking at $2.75. For 40 home runs, you're looking at $4.50. And 45 home runs, you're looking at $9 for a mark he's hit before and started to really show signs in that postseason last year.
He didn't have a chance to do a postseason wrap up at the end of last year. And it was largely because Eric was heartbroken and just because a lot of things sort of got in the way. We never really spoke about how truly unbelievable Vladdy was in the postseason last year. I mean, he had 29 hits in 18 games. His OPS in the postseason was 1,300. To your point, it just felt like every time he came to the plate, he was going to do something that was disruptive. Really, what that's done is, like, if you project out 2025 Vladdy in the postseason, again, we can't really suggest that what he did the entire postseason is the way that he's going to play across 6 months. But it projects to something like 220 hits in a season and 57 home runs over the course of 162 games. So if he's anywhere close to the Vladdy that we saw in the postseason, and again, I know it's different, don't at me, but if he's anywhere close to what, like, we saw him in October, and he's clearly, I think, going to have a bit of a chip on his shoulder, these are the things, I guess, that you need to consider whenever you're putting bets like this on, because he has come out and said a lot of things in the last week with Bo now gone, and the general management has said a lot of things to Bo Bichette gone, that it's like Vladdy now feels like he can be the guy. How much does that mean that he, has an uptick in home runs to the tune of 10 this season or 15 more than what he had previously? But I've got to think that things like that matter, right? Like, you walk around a little bit different. You talk, the expectation happens. And clearly there was that expectation on him last year in the postseason because Bo wasn't there a lot of the time. So if the question is, what does Vladdy do when there's more weight on his shoulders and more pressure on him to deliver that lineup? Well, if the postseason was anything to go by, he delivers, and he delivers in spades better than what he does with Bo in the lineup. So that's another thing for me, is when you just take away one major piece of that puzzle. And again, I mean, the Blue Jays have retooled, and they're still going to be a good baseball team. But I just think after watching him in the postseason last year, who am I to say that Vladdy can't achieve anything? Because if he's anything like he was for, that stretch of October, and, say he's able to come in and out of it for 2 or 3 months during the season, I mean, he could very easily have a 10, 12 home run month. And if he's doing things like that, you're going to be well and true to those totals.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, to your point about being the guy, it's kind of got a lot of similarities actually to the Brandon Woodruff setup, right? Like, albeit Woodruff missed time to injury, Vladdy's just kind of missed time due to not hitting the ball as hard. But it's like, we've seen a guy do this before a few years ago. Now entering this season, all the headlines are like, how far can you take us, and it just being you? And he's hit 48 home runs in a season before. I'm asking for 35 at $2.75. And, to the point I made before about throwing a multi together with a couple of these baselines at that 250 to 320 mark. Yeah, I think you're getting a lot of value there to find out what some of these guys can do, given they've done it before. And what we've seen from Vladdy, he's super streaky with these home run sort of bursts. A 35 home run season, he can easily string together those 15 game stretches where he hits 10 home runs in 15 days. So you need a couple of those and then a bit of consistent output throughout the year. I didn't deep dive his splits last year. I think he was pretty consistent with not having the pop. I know he took forever to get that first one, or to get a few. He was well behind early. Yeah, I mean, 3 in April, 5 in May, 4 in June, 3 in July, 6 in August. I mean, these aren't really Vladdy numbers, right? Like, I think there's upside there, given what we've seen before and given the way he finished last year in those big moments.
Yeah, well, he hit 8 in October, right? So if he has 2 or 3 months, to my point, where he's 8 to 10 home runs, and again, I know it's different, but he does. There was just something about him in October, and maybe he proved something to himself that he can be the guy, and he wants to get back there. The Blue Jays want to get back there. So, I mean, I think it could be a scary prospect for people in the AL East if Vladdy's able to lift because, I mean, he could have an MVP caliber season at his best.
Yeah.
If anything like he was in the postseason, he'd have an MVP caliber season. So, just to your point, I think of the plays that you've given us, and I'm going to ask you to build this in live time. So, get your fingers ready. And I'll do some talking because that's the magic of audio. You can edit this. You have no idea.
Yeah. One thing I
It was
want to go
edited.
to Vladdy first.
Okay, go ahead. All right. I won't steal your thunder.
Okay, so his worst month, or his worst 2 months of the season by OPS were March and April, and he still had the contract extension hanging over his head by then too. So he started the season slow with all of that media circus around him and him kind of, throwing out tongue-in-cheek comments about how he'd look in pinstripes and all of that. It feels like he got more locked in as the season went on, and that was put behind him too.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, you're right. I totally forgot that had happened sort of in the early stages of last year. That's a good point because, I mean, it's a distraction. Whether or not people think it is, I mean, it definitely is. I mean, it's something you come to the ballpark thinking about. Reporters are asking you about it. It's, hard to not say that if that wasn't hanging over his head, maybe last year he does hit 4, 5, 6 more home runs and gets closer to that 30 mark. And then that way, 35 doesn't seem so far away. Look, I think the best that you've given me today, and I like all of them. Again, you've given us a lot of really fun guys to watch on the offensive end. It's a little bit different to what you did on the pitching side, where you really dug deep and found some Brandon Woodruffs and Shane McClanahans and Cam Schlittler's. You've given us some genuine superstars on the offensive side of things. I think if you were going to ask me to a 3-leg multi with all of the tips that you've given us today, and again, this is not financial advice, and I am the world's worst punter, but it doesn't stop us from having a crack, right? I think Ronnie at 30 stolen bases is a tick. I actually think Geraldo Perdomo at 70 RBIs is free money. I think they should just pay you that straight away. If you put the bet on, it should just go right into your account. So I think Ronnie for 30 stolen bases, Perdomo for 70 RBIs. And I'm really just finding it hard. I'm finding it hard to see a world where Jordan, if he stays healthy, doesn't hit 35 home runs. I just don't see how he doesn't hit 35 home. So I think if you multi the 3 of those together, I think you've got 3 really fun guys to watch for different reasons. And you would get a pretty incredible price to find out. I mean, this is not something that you'd have to put hundreds of bucks on to be able to get a pretty good return. I think of what you've given us, those are the 3 that I would be most excited about rolling together.
That's really strange. They let you multi anything in the same category together, but not cross category. So I know because I looked at doing this, I know you can multi, say, Perdomo's 70 RBIs into Jackson Holiday RBIs, I reckon was the other one at 70. Let me have a look. I was trying to build it in real time as you were talking. Yeah, you can do Perdomo and Holiday RBIs together. I wonder if I can maybe throw home runs in. It might just be that they haven't allowed stolen bases into RBIs because I guess technically there's a tiny correlation there. Let's have a look at a home run hitter. No, you can't do it cross category. That's annoying.
It's because they know we're on to something, Spoon. But just given the odds that you gave me, because look, there may be a book out there somewhere that lets you do it. So the odds on Ronnie to swipe 30 was what?
190.
The odds on Geraldo to hit 70.
240.
And the odds for Jordan to hit 35 homers.
260.
And I know you've got a calculator handy, so those 3 things together would give you probably somewhere in the realm of $10, I would imagine.
I think 12 or 13.
I think you could do a lot worse if you could find somebody that would let you on those 3 player props. I think you could do a lot worse than $12 to follow that all season.
Yeah, and I think even if you really like, a couple of, like I just said, you can get the 2 guys at 70, Jackson Holiday and Perdomo at 650. If you take them both to get 80, you're getting 1150. Yeah, and you can do something similar with the home run guys. However you want to pair, the 4 guys I talked about today. So for example, let's go James Wood and PCA both at you're getting $7.20, which I think is crazy. 35 for both of those guys would look even juicier. Obviously, you've got $4.50 about PCA and James Wood, $3.50. Getting $16 about both guys to hit 35 home runs. I think there's a bit of fun there.
Speaking of a bit of fun, we're going to talk about sort of what Destiny Giraffe will look like. But before we do that, if you had to pick one of these that you've given us today, what do you feel like is maybe not the safest play, but the play that excites you the most?
I'm with you. I'm all in on the Perdomo 70, 80, 90. I'll live and die by that. I think it's so far wrong. Sure, there's a world where the D-backs just don't score anywhere near as many runs as they used to, but he was a silver slugging shortstop with 7 WAR who knocked in 100 runs last year, and you're giving me $2.40 about 70. I'm happy to take the implied risk in doing that, but I think 80 at 350 is just madness as well.
Yeah, look, totally agree. And again, we talked about it on Monday. We are in the process of getting a website up. So Spoon will have plenty of preseason plays before the season begins. On the new website, we'll let you know when that's available. And the more exciting thing is that Spoon will continue to update that as the season progresses with plays in week, various, tracking how a lot of these various futures are going, et cetera. So we've given the man himself a platform to be able to reach and make you a bit of money.
Dangerous idea.
It's tough. It's tough for folks out there. Well, giving you the keys to be able to type something is a dangerous idea. And
Just attach a
speaking of,
breathalyzer to it.
no, I think it would be better if we didn't actually. So look, in talking about that, let's talk a little bit about what Destiny Draft is going to look like this year. So for those that weren't with us in 2025, we developed a bit of a concept. Spoon, a guy that fell back in love with baseball cards during COVID-19 pandemic, as a lot of us enjoyed painting and long walks in the park and whatever else. Spoon was buying copious amounts of Topps baseball cards and opening them in his house in South Australia. And he's continued to buy them. So what we did on a few occasions last year was we would live on the air, open a box of a couple of packs. I think we ended up using 2 packs of Topps baseball cards and basically drafting a pseudo fantasy team for the week with that pack. We've come up with a scoring system that works with both offensive players and pitchers. We experimented with it in a few different ways last year. I think I was the guinea pig in both taking a catcher and a closer on separate occasions, which we have determined doesn't work. So don't do that. And things aren't going to change much this year. But what we are going to do it is more frequently, and we are going to allow the community to get involved. So, Spoon, do you want to give people a bit of an idea of what the frequency will look like and what we're going to do with members of the community in Destiny Draft this year?
Yeah, so last year we drafted on the Monday night show here in Australia, and effectively we started our week on Tuesday in Australia, but that lined up well because it was Monday in the US, which was kind of when a lot of new series would start. And we would run the series for a week, and then we typically had kind of a week off before we went and did it again. I think what we're looking at doing this year is drafting every 2 weeks and letting the mini seasons or the rounds, so to speak, run for that full 2-week window, which will open up a lot of strategy around starting pitchers, because in the 1-week rounds we were running last year with just 7 days, you've pretty much either got a guy starting once or a guy starting twice. I think with 14 days, it's going to be really interesting whether guys are starting 2 times or 3 times. But what is the difference between having an ace start twice compared to a B-level pitcher start 3 times? That's something we're all going to get to figure out on the fly, which will be a bit of fun. So we're going to look at doing our opening day show on the Thursday, the day before, when really opening day is, albeit there's one game the day before with the Giants and the Yankees. Friday, the 27th is in Australia is when all teams are in action. That's effectively opening day. So we're going to draft and drop the first Destiny draft on the episode the night before. And then I think we'll run a 17-day season or round effectively then to get us in line with that 2-week schedule moving forward.
And then to that, it's not just going to be the 3 of us. Eric proved that he was the king of Destiny Draft last year, and that was largely due to his longevity. I think we each had good weeks, Spoon and I, from time to time. We also had some
Rocks and diamonds.
We were rocks and diamonds for sure. But this year, we're going to invite members of our community to get involved. So the way that that's going to work is we will put out some sign-up sheets again once the website's up and running in the next couple of weeks. We'll put it out to the masses. Everybody can sign up and have their opportunity. And basically, that user spot will just become the 4th spot in the standings. So a different community member each fortnight will jump in with us, basically represent the baseball expats community, and you can be from anywhere in the world. Look, I think we're happy to do this at whatever time of day we need, just to be able to.
Except LA.
So that has nothing to do with time zones. That has everything to do with pure hatred.
Time zone in hell.
So I think, and again, we're still forming a lot of these plans, but we'll put it out to the masses. And I think we're really looking forward to getting the community involved, because look, if that community spot is sitting in like sort of second or a close third as we get later and later into the season. Whoever's sitting behind them, be it you, me, or Eric Stewart, I think we'll start to get a little bit nervous.
Yeah, I think losing to a rotating cast of people with no overarching strategy with how they're drafting it, and you experimented a lot last year. We've got no idea what's out there, right? I know you took a punt, so to speak, on Class A at one point, and he didn't score you any points. So I don't know. Like, I think listeners are going to either uncover some underutilized areas of the scoring, or it could just be a disaster. I'm kind of excited to find out either way. And you're always going to have your heart overhead guys who just draft players they like or players from their team. But I definitely don't want to be losing to the listener. No disrespect to the communal listener.
Well, a dedicated place to be able to track it on our new site is going to be helpful as well. So yeah, look, we're really looking forward to Destiny Draft and making it more of a repeatable thing as to what it was last year. Look, we experimented with a lot of things on the show here last year. So figuring out what people enjoyed, what they liked, and that was certainly one of them. So that is one that will continue in 2026. Well, Spoon, thanks again for all these plays. I'm glad that I didn't not recognize any of these names, like when you dropped Shane McClanahan on me earlier in the week, and I had to look up whether or not that guy still existed. He did indeed, and then you made me make a reel for him on social media. So thanks for giving us some dead set studs on the offensive sides of things. Appreciate it, and look forward to chatting with you next week.
Should be good, man.